Hi. Um, I am here to talk about some of the ways that we can increase children's comprehension when they are learning to read. One of the big ways that we do that is through making sure that they have a good understanding of oral comprehension. So, oral comprehension is listening comprehension. Listening comprehension is actually the precursor to reading comprehension, so it's an important skill to develop. Listening comprehension isn't just hearing what is said, it's the ability to understand the words and relate to them in some way. For example, when you hear a story read aloud, good listening comprehension skills enable you to understand the story, remember it, discuss it, and even retell it in your own words. You use these same comprehension skills when you're reading later on as children get to the point where they're reading to themselves. They have to have these skills in place in order for them to be good comprehenders of literature. How listening comprehension develops is it's through interaction with people. So children start as young babies. Um, it develops as they are read to and as they engage in conversation with their parents. Tone of voice, pauses between words, where the emphasis is placed in a sentence, and the rhythm and the pattern of speech all have a huge impact on the meaning of the words being spoken and the message that they are meant to convey. So for instance, I'm reading a read aloud to my students every day. It's Little House on the Prairie. And when something exciting's about to happen, I make my voice get, oh, and then I make my voice get softer and more whispery and with an intensity to it that makes the children get on the edge of their seat and think, okay, something big's gonna happen. And that is how tone conveys and impacts the meaning of the words being spoken. You can foster listening comprehension by discussing stories and characters, expanding their vocabulary, and exposing them to various literature experiences such as poetry or funny limericks, funny read-alouds that are picture books, in addition to chapter book read-alouds. So typically, reading comprehension comes after listening comprehension. So the best way for a child to develop higher levels of comprehension is through non-print sources, read-alouds, discussions, even movies. So if you're discussing a movie, you can be discussing characters and motivation and who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, why do you think they were a bad guy, why do you think they did that, why do you think that person was a savior or a good guy. All of those things cue the child into understanding inference and why, because that's really the meat of it. When you're discussing great literature, you're always wondering why. So even after a child learns to read, listening comprehension continues to be an important factor. You can do that through lots of discussion, vocabulary development, and read aloud, of course. And as they gain knowledge of their world. So in prior weeks, as we've been learning about how to engage children in literacy activities, we want to give them vocabulary. So that's why I read Grumpy Gloria. You're reading books about feelings. So children have names for feelings that they're feeling. You read books about children who have learning differences or disabilities. Now they have vocabulary to attach to that. Read books about various ways that people are religious or celebrate God or learn about their faith, so that you have more vocabulary to attach to that. Expand their world. Give them a schema to then stick more knowledge onto later. So when they do come across something in a book, it doesn't just gloss over. They think about it and they think, oh, I remember hearing that word, whenever, and they attach more meaning to it. So lots and lots of games, listening games, like headbands. I don't know if you've ever played headbands with your students. It's a really fun game where you have something on your head and someone else has to describe it to you, and you have to try to figure out who your animal is or what it is that is on your headband. It's a wonderful game to create a good listening skill. Talking to the students. If your students don't understand what words mean, comprehension is not going to happen. So talk, have conversations, discuss. I have the most rich discussions, even with first graders, when we do read alouds. I love to hear what they have to say when I'm asking them, why do you think that Native American did that? You know, we're just finished reading Little House on the Prairie, and there were Native Americans that would come and visit the little log cabin that Ma and Pa built. And so we talk about, like, well, what do you think they felt like when they built their house right along their hunting trail? How do you think that made them feel? Lots and lots of conversations. And children are insightful. They're very insightful, and they understand feelings very well. So keep attaching words to feelings. Continue to do that. As an educator, you need to have those rich conversations. Make your reading aloud interactive. So when you're reading to your students, don't just read. Help your students' listening skills by turning reading into an interactive activity by, here's a few things really quick. Explain those unfamiliar words and situations to help build comprehension. Invite your students to make predictions. What do you think's going to happen next? What do you think Ma's going to do right here? What do you think Pa's going to do right here? Oh no, somebody was down at the bottom of the well, and they had to lift him out. How do you think he had to use all of his strength to get that guy out of the well? You know, whatever is happening in the situation in which you're reading, ask questions, because when you ask if they can predict what's going to happen next, well, they're having to use inferencing skills in order to do that. It's so great for their brains. The other thing is to encourage your students to retell the story. A great way to do that, and now mind you, I'm dealing with first, second, and third graders every day, is if somebody misses a day, like they were absent because they were sick, the next day I say, okay, who can catch up so-and-so? Because they missed the last chapter. So I'd like somebody to help catch them up. Well, now you're asking a child to retell the entire last chapter. You get to now use that as an informal assessment. You are seeing, is that child able to retell the story in a sequential manner? That's information that you get to have and you get to use in order to plan out your next lesson. It's good information to have. So retelling the story is a great thing to do. They can retell the story to their moms and dads. You can say, make sure you go home and tell your mom and dad all about this chapter. That's so exciting. And then text your parents or send an email out and say, hey, just FYI, your child will come home today and retell this chapter to you. Another thing is to continue listening to all types of audiobooks. Listen to listen to oral storytelling. Have a storyteller come in and tell a story. You practice your own storytelling so that you're not reading from a book, you're just telling a story. It's a totally different experience, and children love it, especially if you get big and you interact with them or sometimes I use my thumbs. My thumbs are the people in the story. They love that. So listening comprehension is one of the 5 big skills that children need to be really great readers. So listening comprehension is one. The other 4 are print awareness, letter knowledge, of course, phonological awareness, so understanding that these letters make sounds and understanding what the sounds are, and motivation to read. Being motivated to read is a really huge uh, skill that children need to develop. And the only way they do that is by being read to with picture books and storybooks and chapter books and poetry. Anything that strikes a funny bone in them, that it's funny, um, silly, scary even. Right now, the upper elementary is being scared because they said that they didn't even want to be read to anymore. And so our upper elementary teacher said, what if I read scary stories to you? And so she's pulling out all these great scary stories, and they are hanging on her every word, because sometimes at a certain point in their lives, children just love to be scared. So bring out whatever you can to get children to be on the edges of their seat where they are just clamoring for more. I love it when I close a chapter and I say, now we'll have to find out what happens tomorrow. And all the children go, no, keep reading. And then I'll have to say, tomorrow's another day. We can find out what happens tomorrow. But that leaves them wanting more, and that makes them want to read because of all the rich uh, experiences that they get to have through reading. So listening skills, listening comprehension is a big one, and I'm going to be doing a few activities with you to enhance students' listening comprehension, and I hope you enjoy them. Thanks.